In this lesson, we'll begin building our character's skeleton, and we'll start with the legs. Let's say we head over to our side view, and then from there we could either view our character's display in lines, or if you like, you can also work with shading with lines. So we can press the N key to get to our display menu, and press the B key. That'll show us our model shaded with the wireframe. We always want to be mindful of our topology. That's why we'd want to most certainly make sure we can see our wireframe to make sure we're placing our joints in the right spot. If they're not placed in the right spot, we're going to get some very weird deformations. Alright, with that said, going to the character menu, we can go ahead and work with the joint tool. Now before we begin using this tool to draw out our joints, I'd like to just show you under modifiers, here's where we can set how this tool will behave. So you could either use the default settings, where we'd basically use the left mouse button to move the joints that we've created, hold down Control to create our joints, and then use Shift to split the joints to create in-between joints, which is a really neat feature. But I'm going to go ahead and work with the default settings for the modifiers, but you have several to choose from here. Just wanted to show you that. We will be switching this up as we progress through this course. We also can work with root nulls as we build our chains. I like to leave this turned on. This is so that in case we want to have an extra level of control as far as moving our joints, we can go ahead and use this root null. So I find this comes in handy in a lot of cases. Alright, so with that said, let's say we go ahead and get started by drawing out our thighs pivot. We'll just hold down Control and draw out our first joint. It's a good idea to study anatomy, and that'll help you to determine where these joints should lie within your character. Now, as we get to the knee, we want to consider the preferred angle. This is for IK. We want to make sure that there's going to be a slight bend in that knee, so that as we start to move our IK goal, the leg will bend in the right direction. So with that said, we wouldn't want to draw the leg bone straight down because that's a confusing preferred angle, and we may get the reverse happening where the leg bends in the opposite direction. If you have that type of character, well, that type of leg would suit. But still, with that said, we want to have some type of bend as we build this leg chain. So considering that, I'm going to go ahead and hold down Control and draw the next joint with a slight bend. And then we can go to the ankle, again holding down Control. Now, instead of continuing this through the foot, I'm going to show you a way we can quickly set up a foot roll, a method I like to use. So we're not going to go ahead and just continue the chain. What I'm actually going to do is just make sure this end joint is positioned right where I'd like it to be for the ankle rotation. And checking everything else. Things look pretty good. Okay. So with that said, we can press the W key, or excuse me, the E key to exit our joint tool, just to check the placement. Also, if you like to increase your joint size, most certainly can do so. Under Mode, under the Attributes Manager, I'll simply head over to Object. Then from there, I'll go to the Joint dropdown. Underneath the Size dropdown, let's go ahead and switch this to Custom. And now we can basically set our size to whatever we like. So if you wanted to, you could actually shift select to grab all of your joints and make sure that they're going to have the same size. So I'll switch this back to custom. We can use a value of 20 just to keep things consistent. Okay, great. So let's say we go ahead and build this foot roll system. So to do so, I'll just go back to the joint tool, going back to recently used tools. And instead of drawing this next joint chain, starting from the ankle, we're actually going to start from where the ball of the foot would rotate from. So I'm going to hold down Control, draw the joint. And now this last joint is going to be drawn out right at the end of our leg chain. So we can go ahead and turn on 3D snapping and make sure axis snapping is turned on. I'll hold down Control and snap to that joint. Okay, now we need to worry about the last bone, which is going to be responsible for, let's say, toe bending, if we decided to add that to our control rig. So for this, you just go ahead and again exit the joint tool, just checking things, make sure it's good to go. Okay, great. So going back to that joint tool now, I'll hold down Control and snap to the root of our ball joint, and then hold down Control once more and click to finish the chain at the end of the foot. All right, so let's see what this is going to give us. If we were to, let's say, exit our joint tool again, what I'm going to go ahead and do is now select our ball joint and go to the rotate tool, just pressing the R key, and notice what we're going to be able to get as we start to rotate this, which is really great. As far as the toe, you can see how that's rotating too. That was basically added to that chain. All right, so to prevent that from happening, it's just a matter of making sure that we have the toe parented to not the ball joint, but the ball's root. So I'll go to the toe. There it is. Here's its root. We want to make sure that's going to be underneath the ball's root. Let's simply just drop that in the Objects Manager. And now, as we take that ball and start to rotate that, that toe's going to stay behind. So in no time at all, we're going to get a great foot roll. Okay, great. Let's say we go ahead and start to rename these objects to stay organized. Then we'll also want to make sure it's going to be placed in the right spot in our character. Right now, it looks great in the side view, but if we were to go ahead and look at this in the front view, this is exactly where we don't want it. In the center, we want to kind of center that in the left side of the character's leg. All right, so firstly, we'll go ahead and just work on renaming all of these. Starting from the top, the Objects Manager. That's going to be root underscore its direction, which is L, left side, underscore toe 01. Okay, and then following that, we have the next root to rename. This is going to be for the ball joint. Actually, this first one here, this isn't